The Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Jason Miyares, is on the phone. Mr. Attorney General, good to have you back with us, sir.
Always great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
I'll start with a big news announcement this week. I see that you are looking into an organization called American Muslims for Palestine in Virginia. What are you digging into specifically?
Well, I mean, the reality is my office has launched an investigation to a nonprofit, the organization you described, American Muslims for Palestine. So, I wear a lot of hats as Attorney General, one of which I oversee the charities in Virginia, making sure that every charity in Virginia is complying with applicable Virginia law. You have to be registered properly with the Commonwealth of Virginia before you solicit donations, and we have explicit law in Virginia that prohibits any charity from donating to any known designated terrorist tennis group. So, we have some information that we are looking at whether they are potentially in violation. That's probably the extent of what I could say at this time because it's an active investigation. They are headquarters in Falls Church, Virginia, so it falls under our purview. And so our job is, as Attorney General, I like to say we're the people's protector, and that also makes sure that we're making sure that all of our charities are running properly.
But you wouldn't have started this unless you had some predicate that caused concern.
Well, there is a public lawsuit that has been filed actually in the state of Illinois, and that lawsuit, that complaint, is alleging about $150 million. Possibly that's been transferred to illicit groups. So that's a private complaint by private citizens, but I can't reveal how this got brought to our attention, but it did get brought to our attention, and our job is to investigate and see if the allegations are true.
Sure. Okay. Got it. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you don't just start things on a whim. The Attorney General's office. There's got to be some meaningful predicate for you to investigate a nonprofit group.
Absolutely. No question.
Got it.
No question. Absolutely.
Let me move things to Loudoun County now. We are seeing a bunch of reports this week, courtesy made public to us by the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Mike Chapman, that at just one high school, there have been so many students in just the last 3 weeks. The last I checked, it was 8 or 9 who've overdosed on fentanyl. The belief is typically not that they were trying to consume fentanyl. They thought they were consuming some other drug that was laced with fentanyl. But that's just at one high school in Virginia. Give me a sense of your concern about this issue and what can be done to address it.
Well, it is sky high. I mean, for years, the number one killer of teenagers in Virginia and nationally were automobile fatalities. Now it's overdoses. And what the cartels are doing is committing chemical warfare against Americans. Enough fentanyl is crossing our southern border to kill every man, woman, and child in America more than twice over. Close to 60% of the illicit drugs by that I mean counterfeit pills like Xanax, Percocet. Over 60% of them have fentanyl actually laced into them. So somebody is at a party or they're at a school and somebody's telling them, hey, take this is Percocet or a Xanax. It's actually not. And these are tragic consequences. And part of our frustration, the governor's frustration and my frustration, was the fact that the Loudoun County school system yet again sat on information, did not inform parents what was happening, even though you had this many overdoses at one school. And I could tell you, if you had 8 or 9 students that had gotten food poisoning or even tuberculosis or anything of that nature, parents would have been notified. But it is mind-boggling to me that parents were not notified. And the importance of this is study after study has shown that parents by far and away have the greatest influence on their children, whether they are using illegal or counterfeit drugs. And by having that, it gives parents the license and the freedom to have those conversations. A lot of parents just intuitively think, I had a good kid, I don't need to talk to them about it. It's quite jarring when you see, more than a half a dozen have overdoses at the school that your child goes to or in the school district. And it gives them that license where they can have those conversations where it's, I don't care what they say it is, and I don't care where they claim they got it from, unless it comes directly from your mom or dad or you picked it up yourself at the pharmacy, you do not put that in your body because fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than heroin. It is everywhere. It's why we see so many overdose right now in the United States. And so that's part of my frustration is I think one of the first kind of rules in government is transparency. And parents, more than wanting their child to have a good education, they want their child to just be safe. And the lack of transparency, I think, is why so many parents and elected officials like myself have been just bewildered by some of the decisions.
Absolutely. And so now we have all these students who, by the grace of God, survived the fentanyl that was in their system. I would presume that the next step is to talk to them, figure out where they got this in the first place, who delivered it to them, what other friends may be pursuing the same stuff. And also, what was the communications medium by which they found all of this stuff? That includes, was it TikTok? Was it on Facebook or whatever? Do you think that are you satisfied that those efforts are underway to protect these kids?
Well, I mean, I know Sheriff Chapman is a professional, and I fully expect there's conversations like that happening. But, there's a window here that every day that goes by after an overdose or people aren't able to ask those questions is a day that it gets harder and harder to solve oftentimes these cases. And the origin of this is this unholy alliance where so many of the chemical precursors that they use in fentanyl is being shipped from China to Mexico, and the drug cartels are then using those to manufacture fentanyl. And it used to be that if you had a distribution network, you needed lots of land, you needed good weather, and you needed a distribution network for your product. Well, now you just need the right chemicals. You don't need acres and acres of land. You don't need good weather for the poppy seeds or whatever the illicit drug to grow in. You just need the right chemicals. And so they are able to manufacture fentanyl at a quantity that is simply mind-boggling. It's staggering. And it's one more reason why when the governor and myself have been begging the General Assembly to give law enforcement the tools to charge these dealers with felony homicide, which keeps dying on a party line vote in the General Assembly because Democrats are against anything that enhances penalties for any criminal behavior, even criminal drug dealers that are poisoning our kids. It's unconscionable. So I know there's conversations happening. I know the governor has directed the school districts to inform parents. I think there's going to be legislation to codify and require it under the law. It's ridiculous that we have to get a law to have the school districts do something that is just basic common sense. And I think that's why so many people have gotten frustrated with what they've seen in Loudoun is that it seems like common sense is very common right now. It's absurd.
It's absurd. And it's so dangerous. And someone's going to lose their life because of all of this if things don't get cleaned up quickly. Another Loudoun County story for you. I'm not just trying to concentrate on them, but boy, they keep creating news. Students at Woodgrove High School walked out of class yesterday, a little bit ahead of 11 o'clock in the morning. They were opposed. These are students who are standing up for decency. They were opposed to having girls in the boys' locker room and vice versa. They sang the national anthem. I want to play some audio from Nick Minnock at ABC7, who's done so much great reporting on this subject. And here's what he shared last night.
We asked one girl if she feels safe using the girls' bathroom with this policy in place at Woodgrove High School. Here's what she said.
I stopped using them because I don't know what's going to happen to me in there. And people can be like, oh, well, that's paranoid. I'm telling you right now, half the women in this building feel the same way. We don't use the bathrooms. We hold our pee until we can't. I mean, there are girls in PE who still get changed in the bathroom stalls in there because they're afraid of who might waltz in.
And would you like this policy reversed?
Yes, sir. I believe it's an invasion of privacy on both sides, men in the women's locker room and women in the men's locker room. I believe it's just not a good policy, and that's why we're out here. We're trying to get rid of it.
Attorney General Jason Miyares on the phone with us. So you hear all of this, and it seems like Loudoun County is just one of these counties who doesn't care at all what the voters in Virginia want. They're holding on desperately to allowing the wrong sex into these bathrooms.
Yeah. It's what I say. Sometimes you could be so open-minded, your brain falls out, and that's exactly what it seems to be. I mean, it is astonishing, just for your listeners to pause and think. If anybody had told you this 7 or 8 years ago, what you just played would actually be up for debate in America today, nobody would believe you. They would think it was a bad Saturday Night Live skit. But that is where our political discourse has and our policy has moved, where you literally have elected officials that should be protecting our kids and protecting our our female students, pushing back on this, I don't know, novel idea that you don't allow biological males to play on women's sports team and in the locker room, where, it is such a gross invasion of privacy. But that's where we are. And these kids walked out expressing what I've heard from so many on the campaign trail out back in 2021. And as Attorney General, parents that stopped me, parents that come up to me, students that have come up to me in Northern Virginia that have expressed their frustration. And the most heartbreaking thing is they feel like nobody in local government cares. They totally blow off and brush off their concerns. It is something that we're absolutely looking at, continue to look at in all these, particularly the governor's model policies, which we are absolutely fighting for. But it just goes to show you that what used to be, if people don't think the Democratic Party has not shifted, not just liberal, but so far to the left, this is actually something that they are willing to fight tooth and nail on to basically look at all these young girls that you just described that are fearful just to walk into the bathroom and say, tough luck, get over it. That is mind-boggling. That's where the state of discourse is right now on this issue in America.
So voters in Virginia have a chance to change all of this. Next Tuesday is the election. Early voting is continuing at this moment. It ends Saturday. First of all, just if you could talk on the importance of these elections, Jason Miyares, what do people need to hear?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, you got a great candidate, Juan Pablo Segura in Loudoun County and several others in Northern Virginia. But literally, if you want to make sure that our girls are protected in the locker room and they're not dealing with the clip you just said, you got to go out and you got to vote. And you got to vote for our Republican common sense candidates. If you're frustrated by the fact that we can't charge these drug dealers that are lacing things with fentanyl that are killing and hurting our kids, and you want to charge them and enhance penalties, you got to go out and you got to vote. I mean, the reality of the situation is your voice is your vote, and you have to make sure your voice is heard. And the biggest threat to our republic, I'm convinced, is apathy. It is apathy by those folks that think nothing's going to change. It doesn't matter. It does, particularly in an off-year election where the voter turnout is not as high as it would say in a presidential year.
Yeah.
We have so much good that we could do if we get control of the General Assembly. And so your voice is your vote. Go out and make sure your voice is heard. It's not enough to be angry at what you're hearing on the news. You have to go make sure that your voice is registered at the ballot box. Go vote, and you can vote. Go vote tomorrow in early voting. Just go to your voter registrar's website, and you can see where early voting locations are open up tomorrow and leading up to Election Day, and if not, vote on Election Day.
And Jason Miyares, I'm not sure if you know or not, but I'll ask about, if Republicans do get control of both houses in terms of political priorities, we wonder what comes next. I do hear from a lot of listeners who would like to see an actual school choice platform in Virginia, where parents can take money and send their kids to some other school that's going to serve them better. Is that the kind of thing that would be a priority if Republicans gain control of all of it?
Well, I mean, I think you're going to see a real expansion of what the governor has been pushing, which are these lab schools that essentially give parents and empower parents to be able to where to send their child. We have some of them up. We're looking to expand lab schools in Virginia, and really it goes back to everything that we have seen from the day we ran, which was this concept that parents matter. And I know there was legislation before that wasn't able to get out of the Senate. But I think you're going to see so many great common sense policies that get advanced if we're able to control the General Assembly.
All right. Attorney General Jason Miyares of the Commonwealth, thank you very much, sir. Always good to talk to you.